So right off the bat, I just want to say happy birthday Izuku, because apparently today is Izuku's birthday, so I kind of just wanted to start off this video with that. But anyways, enough with the heroes. Let's talk about the villains. These past 2 chapters have finally given clarity to Shigaraki. Who he is as a person, what he wants as the main villain of our story, and just giving him much needed character growth. I think after these 2 chapters, I think many will now be able to kind of understand why Shigaraki is the main villain, but also allow others to see how much potential he has as a villain to grow into something even greater than All for One. And that's kind of what the story has always been about. It's been the main concept of the story since the very beginning. Izuku was the one that was in the light, the one that wanted to surpass All Might and be the greatest hero of all time. And as we know from the beginning of the story, it was already clarified that he does. And we could assume that it's like some form of journal/diary that, Izuku has been writing in, or in his final climactic battle against Shigaraki, whatever it may be. We knew that he did become the #1 hero. But the thing is when it comes to a hero, there always has to be a nemesis. There always has to be someone on the opposite side. Like, there's 2 sides to one coin. That entire analogy, that's pretty much what Shigaraki has always been. We've always known that he would be the character to grow alongside Izuku, but in the darkness, to eventually replace the mastermind himself, All for One. And eventually we would have the battle of the ages. The new All for One, Shigaraki, versus the new All Might, Izuku. So when you look at it, this is something that's been the main concept. But for a long time now, obviously since the beginning, we have been following Izuku as a character, which makes sense. He is the MC, and when it comes to shonen series in general, you're supposed to focus on the MC. Now, obviously, Horikoshi Sensei, since the very beginning, he has definitely tried to be different than the normal shonen. He's tried to give enough spotlight and focus on side characters, and every so often he does give focus to the villain side of the story. But even then, there wasn't a whole lot of focus on Shigaraki's group as much until recently with this arc, and it has absolutely been fantastic to see the motivation of this group and where they stand in Hero Society in the first place. And I think this was very much needed, because even if it was very risky to do this type of arc, it definitely is paying off, because it allows the viewers now, or the readers, to really understand Shigaraki and be kind of conflicted on both sides. We know that Shigaraki, in some cases, he is a villain. He's done some horrific things, and he does need to be stopped, obviously. But at the end of the day, though, we can truly understand why he's like he is, and it makes us feel sympathy for him. And that's kind of where the, writing is coming into play. What Horikoshi is trying to make us feel is that he does need to be stopped, but it's not going to be one of those type of, villains being stopped that makes us just, cheer. Yeah, Izuku did it! He took him down! He's brought down! We won't be cheering one-sidedly. We won't be finally, he's gone and all that. It won't be like that. When they finally face each other, we'll be it's sad to see Shigaraki finally come undone. Even if it must be done, it's sad to see him fall because of everything that's happened within his life. And Izuku as a character is someone that's very different too. He's always someone that tries to understand people. He tries to understand villains as well. And so I feel like his fight with Shigaraki will have a lot more meaning if he ever does find out the truth. But okay, stopping it for there now, or stopping that, let's just talk about his backstory, Shigaraki's backstory. I don't know how many noticed it, but Shigaraki's depiction within the 2 chapters is very similar to Izuku's depiction when he was younger as a kid. It was something that really stood out to me. If you go and look at, let's say, the 2 panels, if you look at, let's say, Izuku as a child, and then you look at, Shigaraki as a child, they look very similar, eerily similar. It might just be because Horikoshi's, drawings, because, he draws both characters, or all the characters in the series, so maybe his just children-like characters look similar, but regardless, there's definitely some correlation going on there, because once again, Izuku and Shigaraki, they are nemesis. They are destined to one day face each other at the end of the story. So seeing them have a very similar design fits in with the main theme of the story. Because for a long time now, Horikoshi's shown us many examples of individuals that could have become heroes, but they fell, or they become heroes, but in a different way. Like, we've had examples. Like, you know, Izuku was a boy that had no quirk, but eventually he was given a chance thanks to luck. And then you have someone, let's say, like Togata, that, you know, obviously he was destined to eventually gain the quirk that, you know, is one for all. But obviously he didn't get it. He wasn't lucky enough to get it, but then he lost his quirk. And, you know, he didn't give up. He strived hard to be where he was at before he lost his quirk and the overhaul arc. So we know that there's many examples. When we think of Gentle, he's another prime example of someone that could have become someone crazy and someone, like, you know, really good after seeing his quirk demonstrated throughout, you know, the arc he had, his little mini arc, but obviously because of certain circumstances and the way things went, you know, he lost that ability to probably ever become a hero. So, I mean, there has been a lot of examples throughout the journey of, you know, My Hero Academia. And Shigaraki is, once again, one of those type of examples. He is a character that could have been very different if circumstances were different. And I think that's kind of what Horikoshi is wanting to make us constantly realize, is that it only takes a few things. It only takes, like he's been using in this arc, one bad day to really change someone, to really just set you on a path that you can never return from. For instance, what's happened to Twice, what's happened to Toga, what's happened to, you know, Spinner, you know, all of our characters. It just takes one bad day, one problem, or unlucky circumstances, what you're born with, or family you're born into, to really cause your life to just go downhill. And that is what has happened to Shigaraki. He was someone that, obviously, if you look at his character, he had the same inspiration, the dream, as Izuku, to become a hero. He wanted to be a great hero, and he wanted to. Like, we know he gets a quirk, because we know how he is now, but he wanted to become a hero, and he was denied that. His family did not support him, and they denied him. And it is a complete different contrast to what happened with Izuku. Izuku was a boy that was wanting to be a hero, but never had a quirk. He didn't have a quirk, but his mother didn't really give up on him. She continued to support him and look over and after him and never tell him, no, you can't be a hero, no, you can't go out there and go to hero school or whatever. She never told him that. And so, like I said, there's a big difference there. When you see Shigaraki's upbringing, he is someone that obviously didn't have his quirk manifest yet, but his family didn't show him that support, and which led him to go into what happened throughout the journey of his life. So I do like the depiction of that. It was definitely something that Horikoshi Sensei himself wanted to nail into us as the readers, of how Shigaraki, as an example, he could have been Izuku. It was highly likely he could have if he was born in a different family. But thanks to the cursed legacy of All for One and One for All, it has resulted in Shigaraki having his entire life ruined. And so in a lot of cases, this isn't just Shigaraki's family's fault, but it's All for One's fault and even One for All's fault. Not All Might necessarily, but at least the, you know, the holders of, you know, One for All, it is their faults for this circumstance. They are the creator of Shigaraki. They created him as a villain. If it wasn't for the cursed legacy of their constant fights, Shigaraki would probably not exist. But this is something that's always happened in stories. You know, when people try to do good things, sometimes bad things slip through the cracks. And Shigaraki is an example of that. He is someone that was born thanks to the good deeds of individuals, and there was nothing that could be done about it. Because when we look at, you know, All Might's teacher, what she was trying to do, we know what she did. We know who she was fighting. We know why she did it. It was very important. However, at the end of the day, let's be honest. A child doesn't give a crap. They don't give a crap about the world. They don't give a crap about this legacy that is spanned upon generations. They don't care about that. They want a family. They care about simple things, which is kind of what the latest chapter is trying to say, is that Shigaraki didn't want something crazy. He just wanted simple things. He just wanted his family to support him. He wanted his family to step in and stop his father from hurting him, etc. He wanted little things that could have been done, but did not happen. And that is the big part here, is that when you become a hero, sometimes you have to throw away another side of yourself. You have to throw away what you once were. And that's something that you can even see All Might himself has struggled with throughout his journey too. And most heroes probably struggle with this. We've seen examples of this. Endeavor is a prime example of someone that looked at his hero duties and him wanting to get stronger over his family. And we've seen that All Might, obviously, he has his heart in the right place, but because of him wanting to be a hero, he wasn't really good at teaching. He wasn't really good at other little things, and he kind of gave up a lot of other things that could have been normal in his life. He gave up the normal him for the sake of being a hero. And that's kind of what Izuku is doing as well. He's kind of breaking his body, destroying it, just to be able to be a hero, and he's worrying his mom. He's making his family worry about him. So this is kind of the journey of a hero. And they always have to give something up. And that's kind of what happened here, is that Shigaraki and Shigaraki's father were given up because the heroes needed to fight a villain. So, there's a lot of layers to this. And I do like how it really starts making you think, is that even if you become, let's say, the #1 hero, at the end of the day, you are still a man. You are still a person. You are not a god. You are not able to be there every single moment of every single day. There will be people you cannot save. And in this case, even if, we know that Izuku becomes the #1 hero, he is still not going to be quote-unquote perfect. He will have his flaws. And because of those flaws, villains will spawn from those flaws, similar to Shigaraki. So there will never be absolute peace. What we have going on right now at the time of All Might, the reason why there was just peace is because it was just for a short span of time. But eventually evil would rise again. That's just how it is. And like I said, Shigaraki, good example. So, looking a little bit deeper into Shigaraki's past now, his father having this rule that you could not talk about heroes, act like a hero, or anything, it's something that comes out very cruel. Many people that are looking at this from just one side and looking at it from Shigaraki's perspective will instantly side with Shigaraki and not understand where the father is coming from. Now, I'm not saying that the father was justified for what he did to Shigaraki towards the end, hitting him and all that. I don't say that's justified. I'm just saying we gotta understand what led to that very moment and why Shigaraki's father did those things he did throughout Shigaraki's childhood. And the reason for that is because, like I said, Nana, she gave up her child to be a hero, to stop a bad man. And like I said, we know that reason, what she did. And the letter just explains it all. She knew what she was getting into, and she knew she was going to die. She was definitely going to die against All for One. And when she left that letter, it was just basically her pouring her entire heart on the table like, look, I know I have not been a perfect mother. I know you probably will hate me. But I just want you to know, regardless if you hate me or whatever, I do love you and I will watch over you from above. And it's truly an emotional moment because you're like, she knew she was going to die. She knew she was never going to walk away from that fight, but she did it anyways, which is a perfect demonstration of what a hero is. But it also shows the fundamental flaws of what a hero is, because they throw away their life and don't even care about themselves. How can you save others if you can't save yourself? And in a lot of ways, she sacrificed her child to save others. That's what she did. She did technically sacrifice her child to make him very unhappy to protect others. So, she didn't technically do her job. She kind of failed at her job because she could have stepped in and saved her child or been there for her child, but she wasn't. Which resulted in the act of how the father treated his son, Shigaraki, and then created the problem to stem to where it's at now. So, like I said, layers. There is so many layers to this, and it can really just get you thinking about Shigaraki's backstory. And I think that the father, I feel bad for him too, because he was trying. In his own way, he was trying to be a good father and raise his child. Not perfect, obviously. He had a lot of problems, but he did realize he went too far in the end, but obviously because of that, it was already too late. There was just no coming back from what he did, which obviously has resulted in his death in the end. Now, speaking of which, let's talk about Shigaraki's quirk activation, when he was a child. it's very apparent from the brief little depictions is that Shigaraki, his quirk was active for a little while. It just wasn't really that effective. It wasn't really, let's say, it wasn't full throttle to where it instantly decays everything. Because you could see a moment to when he grabs the ball and he throws it for the dog, he gets a shock in his hand, which is representation of that he was decaying, destruction up against the ball. You even see a mark on the ball, but it's not destroyed, which kind of implies either A, his quirk started activating then, or he didn't go full throttle and start decaying the ball instantly. It was a very weak force. And that's why he's just like, ow, and all that. Like, he was just very weirded out by it. And then, after that, we could see that he starts scratching his eyes with all 5 fingers. And when you think about it, it does make you wonder, could Shigaraki, hypothetically, decay his own body? See, that's never really been established. Is he immune to his own decay? And when you see him constantly, like, scratching at his eyes, it's possible that him scratching it at his eyes, he was using a limited version of decay to eat at his skin, which caused it to be very irritated. That's possible. And if that is the case, then his quirk was active for a while, just nobody knew it. Or, even further, it could have just been maybe from, Hana. His sister, his big sister, she might have had a quirk in some ways that affected Shigaraki, but he had no idea what was causing it, and maybe Hana had no idea what her quirk was truly capable of. We don't really know. The point is that you could probably assume that whatever was going on with Shigaraki's eyes is directly tied in with his quirk, either as a side effect, because we know side effects exist with quirks, or it's just him scratching his eyes. Which, the reason why he was scratching his eyes was because he was crying. You gotta think about all the layers here, is that every time he was crying, he was wiping his eyes, and then obviously all 5 fingers touching his eyes, and if decay does work on his body, then it was, decaying the top layer of his skin, which caused the irritation, and when he continued to do it, it was just a cycle. So, that is the reason why. It's possible that's why his eyes look like the way they do, is because he's literally decayed his own eyes. However, this does open the door up for something. This opens up the door for Shigaraki to actually be able to properly control his quirk. And so let's get at that. Here's the thing. When you think about Shigaraki's quirk, it is dangerous. It's a very dangerous ability. He destroys anything he touches with all 5 fingers, which now has been established he doesn't need 5 fingers, he just needs 2, or probably even less, and he can destroy it. And, he also has, like, this area effect of decay that can happen to him. We've seen him standing on the ground and it happens, stuff that he doesn't really even touch. So we know that he doesn't necessarily need to touch things now. He's definitely improved and strengthened his quirk. But there is a few things we gotta think about. Is that, because of how dangerous his quirk is, he can't necessarily experiment, obviously, unless you're a villain, which now he's getting a lot of time to really experiment with his quirk. And when you think about it, it's a very similar situation as Eri. Eri has a very dangerous quirk. We know how dangerous her quirk is, and because of how her quirk is, she can't really utilize it and experiment a lot with it to really understand its limits and how to control it properly. And that's kind of how Shigaraki is. He can't really understand his limits without a lot of trial and error, a lot of problems that arise because of it. And I think that Shigaraki always had the ability to control how much destruction or how fast it is, it just he didn't know how to do it because he hasn't received the proper training for it, because you really can't train something like that. But also, he never went to hero school, so he couldn't properly learn how to use his quirk in the first place. So everything kind of falls in line with why, this could have been a part of his abilities the entire time to be able to control how much he destroys or how he can limit it or etc. It just he didn't know how. And I think that this chapter definitely lets us see that because of the ball situation to potentially the eye irritation, but also what he does to the attack that Redestro sends at him, which that is a very big power-up. Very big power-up, which is scary. Let's talk about that one. He literally grabs Redestro's attack, his stress bomb, and he cracks it and destroys it. Now, the reason how this happened was that instead of dodging, instead of being in defensive state or whatever, he just attacked it. And because it was in a corporal form, physical form, he was able to technically feel it and touch it, and so when he grabbed it, he broke it. So this basically means that he could theoretically break Izuku's air attacks. Like, his airstrikes, how he, flicks air bombs or whatever at people, he can actually probably break that. Because he has the movement, he could stop Izuku's airstrikes at him and just completely disintegrate it. And he could do this to wind attacks, etc. This makes him very strong. That means no matter what range you have on him, he can still stop you. He could stop you if you come at him from a distance or even not close. So there's, no matter what you do, he will still be able to disintegrate anything around him. That's scary. And we can assume that maybe one day he might be able to get an AoE decaying ability. If that does happen, that's even more deadly because of he's able to decay things that he doesn't even touch. So yeah, Shigaraki overall is definitely building up to be a crazy villain. Now, there is a few other things I would like to dive into before I kind of wrap up this video. And that is Shigaraki talking about his motive, his future. Redestru's like, what do you want? He's like, all I really know how to do is destroy. And it's a very powerful moment, because he's basically saying he was never taught anything. That's the only thing he knows is how to destroy. But when Redestru's like, well, a world doesn't need you. A world can't just, be about destruction. It also needs creation. And he's like, no future. I don't want that either. He basically implies that he doesn't want to destroy everything. He doesn't want everything to break apart and be destroyed. He does want a future. And this future is obviously for his comrades. He wants his comrades to be happy. He wants his comrades to be able to have something. So he doesn't want to necessarily destroy everything, which does mean that he would have to learn how to create. And so I think that's kind of the message here, is that he's learning how to have both sides in a perfect balance, creation and destruction, to be able to make the ideal society that he wants. One other thing too is he's probably going to get a costume redesign. I don't know how many actually realize this, but after finding out his backstory, it's very clear that the hands, he never loved those individuals. Clearly, after what we saw, he never really loved his family. In fact, he pretty much hates his family. So, holding on to the very hands that obviously did him wrong would just make him disgusted. So I feel like he's about to just completely give up the hands, not care about them anymore, and look at his new family, which is the League of Villains. And so I think Shigaraki is about to get a whole new costume redesign, because he doesn't need the hands anymore, because now he understands what they are, what their message is for, and it isn't something that he truly cares or loves. It just, he hated them. So yeah, I do think that's probably going to happen. But I want to wrap up this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.